state flag.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. Tonight we have the minister from the Cross Timber Church of Christ, Don Middleton, to lead us in an invocation.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day that you've given us to be able to come here together this evening, and we recognize your sovereignty over the state and over the city of Stephenville. And Father, we thank you for the blessings that you give us every day. I thank you for the men and the women who are serving our city. I pray and ask your blessings on them, Father, for wisdom for the city. And Father, just that you take care of us, Father. We thank you so much for that. We just thank you for this fine city that we live in, that we're able to continue to serve and do the things that you would have us to do. And Father, we just pray and ask you to bless the proceedings of this meeting this evening. We ask these things in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Don. You come down here, I have a presentation to make. Come on up. We put this up early in the agenda because Carrie said I've got to go to Dollar Burger Night. We have a special proclamation for you today. Whereas Jake and Dorothy Roach opened their cafe in June 12th, 1948. That's tonight. Carrie and Jane Roach, daughter of Jake and Dorothy, owns and operates Jake and Dorothy's Cafe. And whereas Jake Roach invented the waffle fry cutter, which was the restaurant still uses for their famous waffle fries. You're gonna have some of those tonight.
Of course.
Okay. Whereas Jake and Dorothy's Cafe has been featured in Texas Country Reporter, The Day Tripper, the Texas Highway Magazine, and Jake and Dorothy's Cafe was named among Texas Monthly's 40 Best Small Town Cafes, December 2008. And whereas Jake and Dorothy Roach embraced an entrepreneurial spirit, and also here go have some hamburgers tonight.
Yeah, a bunch of them.
Thank you very much. I'm sure they people will take some pictures of you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Carrie. Congratulations.
Everybody go have a hamburger tonight. Or two. That's right. All right, we're going to open the council to citizens' general discussion. If anybody has anything they want to bring up and talk about tonight. I have one person who wants to speak tonight. Is there anybody else? I'm going to call Marion Cole from the Sundown on the Square to come make a presentation to us.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilman. I'm Marion Cole. I live at 432 Tanglewood Trail, and I'm here tonight to tell you that we are going to have the 4th annual Sundown on the Square. I doubt that we'll have it for 70 years, though. Congratulations, Terry. That's great. So I gave each of you have a brochure. This is our ad this year. We're very excited about this this event this year. Our main entertainer is Asleep at the Wheel, and when we told Jeremy Allen that Asleep at the Wheel was coming, Jeremy said, I don't think we have a square big enough for to sleep at the wheel to hold all the people. So we hope that's going to happen. Last year we had about 4,500 people, and we're hoping for more this year. We've added some new things at the kids zone, and Jody coddled, and we're praying for Jody. He's not in good health right now, but he will start about 3:30 to start the party. The event doesn't start until 5. It's from 5 to 9, and it's October the 13th. Earlier in the day, from 10 to 3, at the Stephenville Historical House Museum, is Bygone Days on the Bosque. So the whole day is for the museum. The money that we raise from Sundown on the Square goes to the museum, and this year we're focusing on the repairs and renovations of the chapel on the Bosque. And there's a little flyer inside your brochure that tells you what is needed at the chapel and a little history about the chapel of the Bosque. This is truly a community event, a community-sponsored event. We have business sponsors, we have individual sponsors, and without these sponsors, this couldn't happen. We also have over 200 volunteers at the event, and without the volunteers, the event couldn't happen. So this is truly a community project. inside on the brochure, we make it very easy for anyone to be a sponsor. There are different levels, from all the way from the Cross Timbers level at $100 up to the Cowboy Capital level at $5,000. And it's very easy if you want to be a sponsor. The brochure is perforated. You can tear off the bottom part, fill it out, and then return it in the envelope that's inside. So do you have any questions? Last year, the first year we did this, I promise you, we did not know what we were doing. We absolutely, Meta and I, and she's sorry she couldn't be here tonight. She's on vacation. But when we came to you and told you about this idea of Sundown on the Square, we honestly really didn't know if it was going to happen because we didn't really know what we were doing. But over the years, we've trimmed it down, we've streamlined it, and I think this year is going to be better than ever. The first year, we raised $40,000 for the museum, and that went toward this the Center Grove School, which it's looking really good. They're really getting along on the renovation of it. They've put in new windows. The outside looks good. They're getting ready to put it inside the new flooring. Then the second year, the money went toward the Brick Street and Chapard at the parking. Last year, the funds we raised about $35,000 last year, and it's going for the John Tarleton House. So this year's money will go toward the Chapel of the Bosque. So do you have any questions?
Do you have any questions for Marion?
Oh, and once again, one other thing, the way this works, the event itself is free. Anybody, you can come and listen to the concert all night long. If you want to have food and shop and entertainment, the games and things, those are tickets, and the tickets are sold in $2 increments. So everything is either $2, $4, $6, $8, or $10. Like nothing is more than $10. So. And you purchase the tickets, and then that's how. There's no exchange of money except the shops. The downtown merchants will be open, and of course you'll have to pay in there. Can't use your tickets in there. So, anything else? Okay.
Any
thank
questions? Brady and I are going to sponsor the organization, challenge the rest of the council to do
Oh,
the same.
you. Great. Thank
And
you.
so encourage everybody on the council to pony up. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, budget requests. We placed in the newspaper announcements for citizens' requests items be placed on our budget, and tonight was the last night for submission. So is there any from the audience? Anybody have any other budget request? Hearing none, we'll go on to the next item then. Okay, on May the 1st, we tabled the ordinance relating to credit access businesses. And so I'm going to ask, we're going to need to pull it from the table. If I'm right, Randy, we have to have a motion and a vote to bring it from the table to have more discussion on it. So I hear a motion.
Mayor, I move we take from the table, consider approval of ordinance number 2018-018, regulating credit access businesses.
Okay, Brady makes the motion, and Carla?
No, it was
Mark has a second. Okay. Any discussion? Oh, we can't discuss it. That's what we have to vote on. Okay, so let's vote on bringing it from the table. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, it's brought off the table, so now it's open for staff discussion. Is that right? Staff presentation.
Mayor, council, we've discussed this 2 or 3 times over the last year and brought it forward. And the reason we had tabled this the other night was for a distance between the businesses, and we settled on, I believe, kind of the language we were talking about was 1,000 feet. And so that's what's been added to the ordinance. And then also language relating to the annual fee that would be required of the businesses as part of their registration, which was $250 was kind of what we were talking about. If I remember right, that was the same as we had put in the gaming ordinance. And so we felt like that was kind of the direction we wanted to go. So that language is also reflected. We also thought we would talk a little bit about kind of what the ordinance covers and what it does. what we're talking about is credit access business ordinance, or, the more common wording, payday loans or title loans. And so what we've chosen to define it as, is what the Texas Finance Code defines it. And you can see the definition, there. Credit services organization that obtains for consumer or assists in obtaining extension of consumer credit. And the kind of the key point is that it's a deferred presentment transaction or a motor vehicle title loan. In this ordinance, each business would have to apply for and receive a certificate of registration from the city. They must maintain complete records of all loans made by the business for at least 3 years, make them available for inspection by city staff upon request. The amount of the loan or deferred presentment transaction may not exceed 20% of the consumer's gross monthly income, or if it is an auto title loan, may not exceed the lesser of the following: either 3% of the consumer's gross annual or 70% of the retail value of the vehicle. Any loan from a credit access business that provides for repayment in installments may not be payable in more than 4 installments, and the proceeds from each installment must be used to repay at least 25% of the principal amount of the loan. No renewals or refinancing of installment payments are permitted. Any loan made to a consumer within 7 days of a previous loan that has been paid by the consumer constitutes a refinancing or a renewal. If it's a single lump sum repayment, it may not be refinanced or renewed more than 3 times. The proceeds from each refinancing or renewal must be used to repay at least 25% of the principal. Credit access business shall use a paycheck or other documentation to establish the income of the consumer's income. Each location must maintain on its premises to be available agreements in both English and Spanish. For every consumer who cannot read every agreement between the business and a consumer evidencing an extension of consumer credit, any refinancing or renewal granted to the consumer must be read in its entirety prior to their signature. Every consumer who cannot read the disclosure notice required by law must be read to the consumer as well, also in its entirety prior to signature. They shall provide a form to be prescribed by the director, this guy, to each consumer seeking assistance in obtaining an extension of consumer credit, which references nonprofit agencies that provide education, training, basically some self-help before they get that loan. Provide them information that they can go other places. These are the records that we're asking them through the ordinance to maintain for that 3-year period, so that they can be inspected if needed. We took pictures of the current active businesses here in Stephenville. When we first started this conversation, I think we were at 8, and then it dropped to 7, and I think currently we're at 6. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Yes. And so those are kind of the highlights of what the ordinance covers. And I know we had discussed this back and forth a couple of times on role of government and those things, but this ordinance is prepared off a model ordinance that was created by TML, and so it's almost word for word with about 42, 43 other cities across the state. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the chief?
We've got one, Chief.
Okay, Mark?
Back to, you said that the businesses would have to have the records available for review by the city officials. Will that be complaint driven, or is that at any time for any reason?
I believe it would be any time for any reason. The reality probably is it would be complaint driven. I mean, it's stated as available for inspection at any time that would be appropriate or that is determined. It doesn't state that it has to be a complaint, no, sir.
Any other questions for the chief?
Who enforces? Who's in charge of making sure that data's taken like it's supposed to?
The enforcement of this ordinance will fall under the planning and building department.
Any other questions?
Sure.
Yes, ma'am.
Are there penalties for not maintaining that? in
Yes,
the-
ma'am. We didn't prescribe a specific penalty. I don't remember in this ordinance. Randy, do you remember if we prescribed a specific penalty in this one? Do what, Stacy?
119.03.
I think it's Class B misdemeanor, but I'm not sure what it's.
Fine of not more than $500 per day.
Yeah, it's Class C, Class C.
Okay, so
$500.
any violation is a fine of not more than $500 a day. So it's not a, sometimes in ordinances will prescribe a specific penalty.
But there
that
is a
would fall more in
provision.
our general category where the judge would have discretion. But yes, ma'am, any violation of any of those sections.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Chief, do y'all intend to routinely inspect these and their records, or is?
The police department does not, no, sir.
Okay.
This, all enforcement and everything of this, because this is a business regulation, is gonna fall more under the planning and building side of
Okay.
the city government.
That was my question, because that was my understanding, rather than a police enforcement issue, it was another department that was going to take care of that.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Anybody else? Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt ordinance number 2018-0-18 as it's been presented with the corrections made.
Mark has made the motion and
Second.
Alan seconded the motion. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Same sign opposed. Okay, motion passed. Thank you, Chief. Next item on the agenda is number 5, is discuss the replacement, or discuss place 3 vacancy. When I left place 3, Randy has consulted and we've been told that we have 2 options. One is either to start the process for, where we make the assignment, we pick somebody to be in place 3. The other option is to wait until May for the next election. And so we're gonna have open discussion, so I'm gonna open the floor. There is also in November, there'll be on the ballot, a discussion about whether we make the council smaller as well. So just keep that in mind as we vote. So anybody have any discussion?
Well, I'll start it off. I'll say that it's my belief that the placement of elected officials is the sole purview of the voter, and I would not be looking to support anything that usurps that.
Okay. Anybody else?
I agree.
I agree
I do
100%.
too.
It's gotta be by the voters.
You have a dissenting opinion on that?
I agree with that. However, we have had a precedent set more than once of filling a vacancy in the election. And I'm understanding now that Randy does not believe that was done correctly because of the way our charter is written. And I'm curious, with the precedent that has been set and with things that have taken place in the past, where does that leave them and where does that leave us?
I think you asked me 2 or 3 things.
He's like that.
First is precedent, as I've told you many times, that you didn't set any legal precedent. You may feel like it set some sort of precedent with the public, but you didn't set a legal precedent when you appointed somebody. Okay. The other thing that I was presented by the administrator was that when one of our mayors 7, 8 years ago was elected, and we had a vacancy, we went ahead and had a November election. If that's right, if those are the facts, we made a mistake.
And I believe that is the fact, because I believe Mayor Hunter was elected from the council in '08, and then we filled that following November, if my memory is correct.
Those were the facts. I didn't go back to check them, but those are the facts I was given, and if that's right, we made a mistake.
And your counsel is at this time not to repeat that mistake.
That's correct. There's nothing we can do about that one now. If it was a mistake, if those are the facts and it's a mistake, there's nothing we can do. We just not do it now and hopefully not in the future.
So it's my understanding at this point, we'd have to make a motion tonight or decision tonight to start taking applications. Otherwise, it just rolls around in May. at the next election, is that
I
correct?
don't know if you'd have to take applications,
Or we could just appoint somebody?
yes.
Okay, we'd have to instruct staff on how to do that process.
You would.
So in other words, right now, unless we do make that decision, the answer is May is gonna be the next time the election rolls around.
You can appoint somebody, I hadn't thought about this, but you can appoint somebody anytime between now and next May.
But that person would have to rerun in May.
Yes,
Okay.
that seat would be up, the next election, and that would be May.
Any other question or discussion? Is there a motion on the floor to fill the spot?
Mayor, I make a motion that we leave the place 3 seat vacant until the May election and fill it at that time.
Second.
Okay, Carla makes the motion, and Sherry seconds it. Any more discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oh, excuse me.
The motion was,
The motion is to leave it vacant until May, excuse me.
okay.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Same sign opposed. Okay, the position will be held vacant unless we decide in the meantime to do something different. We'll leave it open until May. Technically, I guess that was my question. We didn't really have to vote on that because it would have happened anyway had we not done that. But that's okay. We're all right. All right, let's go down to item number 5, council appointments. There has been I've had several calls and some discussions about appointing a tourism and visitor committee. And tonight, we're going to make appointments to committees. And so I want to have this discussion first because we have 2 different sets of names for different committees based on how we decide on this tonight. So I'm going to open it for discussion to whether we should create a tourism and visitor committee.
Man, if I don't mind speaking
Sure.
on it. I think our discussions have been that unanimously, it seems like we want that to happen as far as the council's concerned. I think we need that to happen. I think if you look at most CBBs or whatever boards you want to call them, I think they're going to be directed by board or commission that's going to do all the heavy lifting. So I think our ultimate issue is how do we want that commission to be comprised of who and what. So I'm assuming that's the direction you're wanting tonight, correct?
Yes.
And I think, in my opinion, we've had conversations about what types of people need to serve on there, and then of course for how long and how many, all that kind of stuff. And to me, it seems like there's been a lot of consensus that we need people from the hotel industry, people maybe from at large, of course, and then also we want council members to serve on there as well.
Well, tonight, the discussion is whether the council has a council committee to add to the existing 7 committees we have.
We're gonna list it just for council only?
This would be a council
So-
committee.
So we'd have a separate board. We've talked about a
We've talked
board.
about having a
This is
separate
something the
board.
committee would discuss then, the board.
Yes, it was
Okay.
staff's recommendation that we form a committee within the council. And then at some point in time, maybe next fall, or excuse me, next spring or early summer, we consider appointing a committee at large in the community to give some direction
So
from
it's
those folks.
Just transition, I guess.
This, a
until we
transition
get to
time,
that
so
point.
this is a committee from the city council.
Well, we need something, so if that's how we're
I
gonna do
think
it.
so, yeah.
Any other discussion, questions?
So the responsibilities of this committee would be exactly what in your mind?
It would be directing Julie's role.
Reviewing the applications.
She'd make presentations just like the other committee oversight. And she'd bring in like any requests for, I'm assuming that if someone wants hot funds, there you go, Mark. If they take hot funds or request hot funds, they'd bring it to the committee for recommendations or discussion and then bring it to full council for approval. And any other kinds of marketing issues and so on.
But this is not intended to be a permanent solution to that.
Well, what it's looking to be, it'd be a permanent committee on the council. And the council would then appoint we'd have to discuss, well, I guess we'd discuss at that point, do we wanna dissolve the city council's committee when we form the community organization, community board?
The part of what this committee would be tasked with is to try to see if we're gonna form a.
Correct.
Okay.
And how to do that and bring recommendations to council. So the tenure of it is I'm not sure.
Sure.
Mark?
So the more important function would be to possibly create a future group from the community.
That would be
That
one
would be
part.
the more important.
Yes.
See, that's what I see it
Yeah,
as.
and that
That's what I
I
see.
agree with.
Yeah.
That-
Because
that I agree
for
with.
the sake of just, purposely establishing another standing committee, I just
Busy
don't
work.
see the justification
Busy work.
myself.
So I guess if we create a standing committee, then we would have to uncreated at the point we decided later to have this community board instead.
Just call it a temporary committee?
The council has the right to call it whatever it wants to. The purpose that this was suggested for is because we're bringing $500 requests to the entire council, and that's inefficient. With all of the other requests that fall under the purview of say, Public Works or whatever, those items and issues are discussed in committee. The committee advances that to council if they deem that necessary or appropriate. And we felt like it would be much more efficient to have the committee from council to advance those items to the council in total. Now, moving forward into the future, if a broader based committee is established, then I would see the role, at least temporarily, of the council committee as establishing the parameters for that other board. Because what I've seen happen in the past with tourism boards is, without proper instructions and guidelines and boundaries, they tend to overstep and think they're empowered to do things that they're not, to spend money that they're not empowered to spend, and that causes some friction. And so I see the role of the committee, if it is a temporary committee, of being of establishing recommended guidelines for the whatever the permanent solution
Advisory
is.
board.
So
That's
they're
correct.
doing the heavy lifting of setting up the structure for what that looks like, basically, because we're new.
Yeah, I guess that's a good way to look at it. I mean, staff would actually do
Right.
the legwork.
Right.
But you guys would be making the policy decisions.
I mean, I wouldn't be opposed also if the committee in the meantime wants to take up applications for consideration of welfare referral to council, but as long as that's not a long-term solution.
Probably up to a certain amount anyway.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Sure.
Razor.
Yes, ma'am.
I have just as a point, I am in favor of establishing a council committee, we call it an ad hoc committee, temporary committee, whatever, that does these things we have just been discussing, but also where there is, so we don't have to go through some of the big presentations that we did last year when we were talking about the Tourism Bureau that did involve the whole council's time and stuff. In addition to which, at some point, either that committee might need to become a permanent committee from the point of financial oversight, or if their board gets established, that the tourism hot funds essentially become rolled into the oversight of maybe finance or, excuse me, community services, which we have talked about before. Because one of the issues with the hot funds was we didn't have oversight of it, effective oversight of it before. And so, long-term, whether it's by this tourism committee or some other committee that it gets rolled into, I do think that's an essential part of the council's responsibility over the hot funds.
Any other comments?
Well, we wouldn't have to call it a temporary committee. I mean, we can change the committee anytime we want to, because if you look back at council minutes through the years, the committees have changed, so we could change it at any time.
So just make it, just make a
Just
committee and
make it
then
a committee and then
change if we
decide
want to.
later what you want.
I think you wanna call it a special committee under our rules of procedure to be a special committee may be appointed if the city council needs arise. We make it a standing committee, then it's subject to annual appointment, so I guess, Mayor, I'll make a motion.
Okay,
I move that we appoint a special committee for the creation of a tourist and visitors, well, I guess I appoint a special tourist and visitor committee comprised of 3 council members, to serve the purpose of making recommendations for a permanent committee and to consider hot fund applications not to exceed $5,000.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion. Sherry seconds it. You wanna restate the best you can?
You want me to-
look-
you want-
afraid I don't have that one written down. I'm gonna have to go back.
You want me to
Okay.
reinstate it?
Yeah.
I think so. I made a motion to appoint a special tourist and visitor committee consisted of 3 council members to make recommendations in creating a permanent committee and to consider hot fund applications not to exceed $5,000.
We have a motion and a second. Sherry seconded the motion. Any more discussion, questions?
Well,
Just,
we call our Parks Board, Library Board, do we call them committees or boards?
Those are advisory boards that are created
So
by
sh-
ordinance.
Okay, so this we wouldn't be creating an advisory board with this committee, okay.
any other
It
questions?
could recommend creating an advisory
Yeah.
board, right?
Okay,
I think that's right.
Yeah, that's, well, it's
okay.
50% of the point.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Is there a reason we're putting a financial limit on that instead of just consider all the applications as they come in?
I just heard some comment about that from our discussion, so just to make things simple, I thought it seemed like it was important to some folks, but if you want to amend it though, I have no objection to it being no limit.
Well, and I agree with the concept, but I'm not sure we want to put that limitation on there. Mr. Barnes had something.
If I could get some clarity on what the definition of consider, would that be that they would review the applications or that they would approve the expenditure of the funds?
Well, I wouldn't recommend that they approve the expenditure fund. The
It
whole
just
council
goes to
needs to
full
approve the
council.
recommendation of expenditure of funds. They would just make a recommendation to the council.
Then we don't need a limitation.
Then you don't need a limit.
That was what my question was.
I was trying to read your minds, I guess, so, and I have no problem with the no limitation, to be
Okay,
honest.
we're gonna
I'll
entertain
move to amend the main motion by striking out the word
Okay.
$10,000.
I'll second that.
Okay, Brady amends his own motion. And Mark seconds it to amend it to strike the dollar limit.
Yes,
Okay, we're going to ask for a vote. All in favor of the amendment to strike the dollar figure? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Same sign opposed. Okay, the amendment is passed. Now let's go back to the motion itself to create, I'm not gonna ask you to say it again. And you'll get it off the recording, so we'll get the details of that. Any more discussion about the actual motion? We'll
So,
vote.
so when is this 3-person, committee comprised? Is it
It would be tonight.
Okay,
Yeah, I have, and the next agenda item is to make appointments.
fair enough.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Same sign opposed. Okay, we now have a special committee for visitors and tourism and visitor. Way to go, Julie. All right, next item on the agenda is appointing council member, or making assignments for council members on committees. And so that was one of the reasons we did that first, because we now have 8 committees. I appreciate all the feedback that everybody gave on which committees you wanted to be on. Yeah, if you want to hand that out, that'd be great. I'm sure that we'll need to make a copy for the paper, they're gonna want a copy of that as well. So what I did was I went through and took the best I could, the committee chairs that are currently chairs, and then your request or your, what you wanted to do as far as the committee assignments. Did the best I could, talked to almost everybody, those who had returned my calls. I understand, you're busy, I understand. Just had to give Ruby a little bit. So I went through and I made the assignments. If you look at your handout, you'll notice that in yellow are the committee chairs. And if you'll see the ones, that just means it shows, I'm just doing a foot and crossfoot here, to show how many total members, or how many committees each member is on. And as you can see, Mark McClinton would be the Finance Committee Chair. He volunteered to do that, and I really appreciate him doing that. He'd be on Community Services, Planning and Development, and Public Works. That's how that would work. So you go across Carla. The next one would be the Tourism and Visitors Bureau Chair. Brady would be Public Health and Safety. Rhett would be Nominations. Allen would be Public Works. And because we have 8 committees and 7 council members, one person had to have 2 duties. And since Boyd's no longer willing to serve as a committee member, we can't put Boyd on there. So personnel was probably the one committee, after I talked to Stacy, the one committee has the least amount of meetings. And Sherry agreed to chair 2 committees, which is Community Services, which is what she's chairs now, and take on Personnel. And then Brandon would have Planning and Development, would be the chair of Planning and Development. You can see the numbers across. What that means is Finance Committee would have 3 members, Community Services 4, Personnel 3, Planning and Development 4, Public Health and Safety 3, Nominations 4, Public Works 4, and Tourism 3. And I pretty well got, as I talked to each of y'all, I think I got pretty much okay that this was okay with y'all. So, Stacy, do we have to vote on this, or is these just, we do vote on, okay. Any discussion or questions? I'll try to answer those on the phone if I could, when I was able to. Okay, then I'll entertain a motion to make this as the permanent appointments for this, this calendar year, or this fiscal year for the city.
So moved.
Okay, Mark
Second.
makes the motion and Carla seconds it. Any more discussion?
I guess a note,
Yes, sir.
recognizing that you weren't sure whether we were gonna have 7 or 8 committees. In the future, if we know how many committees, it would be helpful to me at least to have this ahead of time,
Okay,
prior to the meeting, maybe I should say it that way, so we could discuss it or talk about it, or so I would have time to digest it, maybe that's the best way
Okay.
to say it.
all right, so noted. I did have it set up to where we could have, everybody had 4 committees and had, there's 28, potentially 28 committees or assignments like that, so duly noted. So I have a motion and a second on the floor. Any more discussion? All in favor of these appointments, say aye.
Aye.
All same side opposed. Okay, we now have our assignments, and y'all can get your copy of it from Stacy. Thank you very much.
Am I gonna get a little bitty bookmark that, oh, good.
You can read it anyway.
I use that more than anything else.
One more appointment we need to talk about is considering appointment of a representative to the North Central Texas Council of Governments. Carla was their representative last year.
And Brady was the year before, and neither one of us have attended a meeting. I will tell you that there was a meeting last year right after I was appointed, and it was just an awards luncheon. Do they have anything else besides awards luncheons? Because if they've had meetings, it's not come through my email.
That's all I've ever heard of, but
Okay, so,
I don't.
Well, it has been brought to my attention and recommended to me that Carla be appointed to the North Central
to
Texas
continue
Council
not
of
to
Governments,
go.
representing the city council. We need a name to put on the list. So are you willing to do that, serve that
Sure.
way? All right, anybody have a
Brady wants to take
recommendation?
that.
Oh, you did good last year.
I sent you the information, you kind of avoided my email.
I was busy, I better tell.
There you go, there you go. All right, do I hear a motion to appoint Carla?
So moved.
Sherry make the motion, second it?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second from Rhett. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Same sign opposed. Okay, Carla, congratulations.
I'll try to find
The
a
meeting's Friday.
banquet that I can go
The
to.
meeting's Friday, seriously.
I know.
Okay.
I saw it, and it was just.
So you did get my
It
email.
was,
Yeah, I thought I was
it was a
talking.
luncheon.
Okay. Okay, item number 6, Planning and Zoning Commission. I'm gonna open the public hearing on case number SUP 2018-001 Boyd Wagner. Is there a staff report?
Public hearing case SUP 2018-001, applicant Boyd Wagner is requesting a special use permit in order to operate a restaurant with alcohol service in the downtown district at 389 Graham, being lots 12, block 4 of the city addition, city of Stephenville, Erath County. Staff has no objection to granting the special use permit in order to operate a restaurant with alcohol beverage service in downtown district at the location specified. The current zoning is downtown district. The comprehensive plan, projected plan, land use does call for it to remain downtown district. This is, you guys all know Mr. Wagner's location here. So that's the downtown district there in orange for the future land use. The colors are a little different in the actual current zoning, but it's in blue, so you'll see it's surrounded by the downtown district. The regulations of the downtown district is intended to encourage the redevelopment of the original township, which includes the historic courthouse, offices, retail, business, and residences, including restaurants. The varying land uses included in the downtown district are compatible with existing uses to preserve the integrity of the downtown area and to deter urban deterioration. This district also facilitates the maintenance of the area and provides for vibrant interaction between retail, service, residential, government, and public use. A use which shall be permitted in a particular district only upon fulfillment of the conditions set forth in the zoning for that use of the regulations are appropriate for special use. And in this case, restaurant with alcohol, Mr. Wagner does meet all the requirements of the downtown district, and he has applied through TABC for his alcohol permit, which will regulate the use of alcohol in the downtown district. And if I just may add to Mr. Wagner, appreciate the investment in the community. Whether this goes forth or not, it's his restaurant down there will add to the downtown district, so appreciate that.
Any questions for Jeremy?
Did P and Z hear this?
Yes, and it was unanimous from P and Z to bring this to council.
Unanimous to approve it?
Yeah, that's right, to recommend approval to council.
Okay.
Other questions, Jeremy? Okay, thank you. Is there anyone here that'd like to speak in opposition to the application? Is there anyone here that'd like to speak in favor of the application? Mr. Wagner, I'm assuming you want to come up here and address us?
Yeah, I want to apologize for wearing my dog and lawyer t-shirt. I left my cell phone in somebody's recreational vehicle out in the country this afternoon. I spent most of the afternoon looking for it. I can't show up on time without my cell phone. I finally realized at 6 that, this was going on, and so here I am. Y'all know where the place is, and I just want to run a hamburger joint, sell beer there, and whatever. And it's down to Ram Central Station, I don't know if you've seen it, but it looks pretty good now. And I bought a golf cart, and I live 2 blocks from there, and 2 people stopped me in cars on the way home yesterday. Want to know when it's going to open. Everybody's want to know when it's going to open, so they come in there. So I think it's going to be a fun place.
That's my question, when's it going to open?
I was going to say it was going to open 7 days after my flat top got to working. It got to working Friday. And I realized I got a health inspection this Saturday, so maybe 7 days after I pass the health inspection. So.
Did you get that jukebox?
No, I haven't got a jukebox yet.
I have to work on it.
Are you still gonna offer free beer and burgers until you get them right?
Yeah, till I get
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's on record now.
I didn't say how many, but anything else?
Any questions for Boyd?
We're
It
happy
looks
for you.
great, Boyd, it looks really good.
Right.
Yeah.
We're excited.
And if there's no other discussion, we're going to close the public hearing and come back in council, and we're going to consider approving of an ordinance here. Stacy, would you read the caption of the ordinance then?
Considering approval of ordinance number 2018-0-21, allowing a restaurant with alcohol sales as a special use permit district in the downtown district at 389 South Green Street.
Thank you. Any discussion? Questions? Do I hear a motion?
Mayor, I'll move that we approve ordinance 2018-021.
Second.
Okay, Brady makes the motion and Mark seconds it, that we approve the ordinance 2018-021. Any more discussion? Having a motion on the floor, we'll have, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Same sign opposed.
No.
One opposition. The ordinance passes. Thank you very much. Good luck, Boyd.
Thank you, Boyd.
Good luck, boy.
Good luck.
All right, we're going to enter another public hearing. We're going to do case number ZA 2018-001.
Mayor, members of council, case ZA 2018-001, amend the 5.4 of the zoning ordinance, single-family residential district 1.5. If you guys can recall, over the last few years, we've brought this up at a council level a few times to reduce the lot size in the section of 1.5. This item was placed on the workshop agenda on March 21st for planning and zoning. The commission recommended unanimously to bring this to full council at the previous meeting. The residential district provides for neighborhood redevelopment, medium density. The primary land use allows for single-family dwelling development on smaller lots. Recreational, religious, educational uses normally appropriate in such districts and are also permitted to contribute to the natural elements of the convenient, balanced, and attractive neighborhood. Development within this district is intended to separate from and protected from the encroachment of land activities that do not contribute to the aesthetics and functional well-being of the intended district. So basically we're taking from a 6,000 square foot lot size down to 5,000 square foot lot size, so from 60 by 100 to 50 by 100, and the idea is to allow for hopefully another tool for developers to be able to develop on smaller lots and possibly, maybe some smaller starter homes to allow for development to make probably some more lots, most likely more money if they do something like this. So.
Any questions for Jeremy? Yes, ma'am. Oh,
Well,
Mark, go ahead.
Mark had one.
Go ahead, Mark. We'll start with one. Come to
Well,
you.
Jeremy knows what I'm gonna ask him, cause I keep asking him about it. So, at the P and Z meeting, you talked about the options that would be available for the developers if they came in requesting a 50-foot lot on the corner. And I
That was
just,
my same question.
so I just wanna get it out in the open of what the options are, because of the 25-foot setback from the side street and 5 foot from the internal, that leaves 20 feet for the footprint of the house on the corner if it's 50 feet. So, if you just go over those options again.
Yeah, and after, you caught me spur of the moment at the council meeting, so I know the first answer wasn't the greatest, because I said that, one of the options was a board of adjustment, and they could do that, and then I came back later, which is the appropriate response, is that we address this in the development stage, so when they're platting this, and if you think of subdivisions or even, neighborhoods now, the corner lots are typically bigger lots, and this is probably the reason, because of those setbacks. So when we're looking at subdivisions, we would just have to make sure that those lots in the corner, meet the setbacks, and that way we don't have to do a board of adjustment, so, yes, ma'am.
But if you say the minimum lot size is 5,000 square feet, what if a developer argues with that? I mean, you said 5,000 square feet, what if he doesn't wanna make those corner lots
Well,
bigger?
then he can't build on that lot. I mean, he wouldn't be able to build a house on that lot without going through board of adjustment. But we would strongly recommend, and I think most developers are gonna build those lots are gonna understand that there's a setback, and if they're gonna have to go to board adjustment, if board of adjustment says no, then they're stuck, they're back at square one, so, we would just,
So there wouldn't be a way around it, they couldn't build some small skinny I mean, we
No.
talked about that.
they
at
would still have to meet all the other regulations of the size of the house and the property, so they could not get around it without going to board adjustment, but, we would stop it before that. We're not creating, the comment was made, we're creating something that's automatically gonna be asked to go to board of adjustment.
know,
That's
that
not
was-
the case. We're going to make sure the lot size, that's the minimum lot size. So they can have a bigger lot, so they can have a house on there.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be 5,000 square
So
feet.
that will be addressed when they come to
That's
you.
right.
Okay.
And we do plat review and plan review,
Okay.
all the time with any development, so
So
that would be a comment.
what's the relativity of the square footage of the house? 1,500? Is that still?
I think it's a lower, the size of the house is lower on those property. I thought it was 1,200. I'd have
Is it
to
1,200?
go back and look at it. I have it here.
I don't
so
remember
let
them
me look at it.
discussing the square
It'd be
foot
a
size.
30 by 40.
I don't remember us discussing square foot size.
40 by 30, either one, because we got a 5.
The minimum area of the main building is 1,000 square feet in that
1,000.
neighborhood, so it is less. And so that's the selling point for this that we talked about the last couple of years, is we have a lot of irregular sized lots, if we're talking about rezoning, so it keeps a single family home in those smaller lots. If we're doing that, it'll allow them to build a smaller house in those. But, from a subdivision standpoint, you can, in theory, put in more lots if a developer wanted to, and build more lots and possibly having some more money. And we're just trying to the idea was to give as many tools to developers we can, and not stipend development, but actually try to promote it. And if this is another tool, we may not get anybody use this. But what if we do? I mean, it's a good
Well,
opportunity.
this was a tremendous discussion from what I remember maybe about 3 years ago. But it wasn't geared so much towards the lot size, it was geared towards the square footage of the home.
Yeah, and we didn't mess with the size of the home. So.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Are there a significant number of those lots out there that would fall into this category, Jeremy, that
I believe so. I mean, where there's, some of the older neighborhoods, those have been cut up, so quite a bit differently. I was told, I was given a history lesson that a lot of the lots used to be long and narrow because of the horses and the troughs in the back. When they started cutting those up, they cut them, narrow or short, and so we got some different sized lots. Nothing's a square in Stephenville. Everything's, oblong and odd shapes. So, I think it's an option that will allow developers, I mean, whether they use it or not, or whether they, combine lots because of that. I mean, it's just it's wait and see type of thing, but it's an option that we're offering, so.
Anybody else?
From a different perspective, and this is kind of a question I have myself, is that you have these small lots, and from a marketing standpoint, they're not worth any money, correct?
Right.
I mean, they're basically useless. So if you take a lot, let's say that's 50 feet across, and now it's of value, what would you think that the appraisal district would look at lots that were bigger than that? Do you think that it might be and I actually put in a call appraisal district today, they didn't call me back. But if we make a 50-foot lot more value, then is it likely that the appraisal district will come back in and say, okay, you have a 100-foot lot, it's worth more money than what it is now because the 50-foot lot is of value?
I don't want to speak for the appraisal
I know.
district. They've tried to explain to me their formulas and whatnot multiple times. I mean, I would say they take it based on the size of the house and the lot size and the zoning and the surrounding areas. There's a whole bunch of factors. So you would think it'd be more value. I mean, based on the house that you put on there. So if you're tearing
For
down
the existing, but I'm talking about vacant property. I mean, even if it's vacant property out there, I mean, they assess the value based on the size of that lot.
Right.
So I'm just, in my mind, I'm thinking what we're doing is we're opening up a small threshold, be it good, be it bad, for the appraisal district to come back in and say, okay, now a lot that was typically standard to build on is worth even more money in the eyes of the appraisal district. That's what I'm
Yeah, I
saying.
see what you're saying. I don't have an answer for you if that's the way they're gonna address it.
Well, like I said, I put in a call to them on every.
But we have in our zoning, R2 and R3, this is the size of lot it is. We have a 50 by 100 already in our zoning, but the R2 allows for some duplexes, R3 allows for multifamily. This is strictly single family home. So we have those size lots currently, so that vacant land, I mean, in theory, could be the same value, I guess. I don't know if that makes sense.
Maybe so.
I will say that our planning and zoning, we listened to this the first time, and we had some good conversation. They asked us to bring some developers back to discuss this. We did. We had a few developers, and for the most part, they were in favor. They didn't have any objection to it. They weren't overly excited about it, but they thought it was a tool that maybe, may open up some possibilities. They didn't have a clear cut, I'm gonna start developing on this property right away, so.
Anybody else? Thank you, Jeremy. Is there anybody here who'd like to speak in opposition to the potential ordinance? Hearing none, what about speaking in favor of the ordinance? Not, then I'll close the public hearing. We'll go into consider the ordinance. And so Stacy, would you read the it's called caption of the ordinance, please?
Thank you. Consider approval of ordinance number 2018-0-22, which is an ordinance amending section 5.4, single-family residential district, R1.5 of the zoning ordinance.
Any discussion? Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Mark moves that we approve, and Carl is second. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Same sign opposed. Okay, the motion, the ordinance passes. Thank you, Jeremy. Next item 7, is our monthly budget report. Monica Harris, Financial Director. We all waiting with bated breath.
Mayor, Council, this is our budget report for the period ending April 30th, which takes us into 7 months into our fiscal year. Once again, we're moving forward about what we expected to be. So for our property taxes, we received $19,000 in the month of April, which is $513,000 increase over the funds collected through April 30th of last year. The county normally collects about 97.22% of our property taxes as of April 30th, and this year we're at 98.67%, so we're a little above. We received $403,000 in sales tax in April, which is $80,000 over our target budget through April 30th, and $77,000 or 2.29% more than last year. The target budget for operating revenues is $13.9 million. We received $16.4 million revenue, which is $2.5 million over budget. Of course, a big chunk of that is for our property taxes that are billed in October, due by January 31st, but we have had some increases in sales taxes and other taxes. The target budget for operating expenditures is $11.3 million. We've only expended $10.1 million, which is $1.2 million under budget. Our operating revenue received last year was $15.9 million, and this year is $16.4 million, which is $459,000 increase due to our property taxes and sales taxes. The operating expenditures last year were $10.3 million, and the current year is $10.1 million, which is a $228,000 decrease from last year. For our new programs, the concrete work under the bleachers at the city park has been completed. The mobile command has been ordered, or really the parts for, have been ordered for EMS, and the 3 patrol vehicles have been ordered and are being equipped. $20,017 of the $875,000 for street pavement maintenance has been spent as of April 30th. Are there any questions?
Any questions on the financial report? I'm assuming, say, so we have to get us, we vote on this, or we don't? It's just a report, okay. Let me ask a question, it's, I guess maybe Alan, the accident that happened with the fire department, fire truck, will that
Yes,
be
sir.
covered by insurance? Completely covered? Since we were hit and he may not have insurance.
The damage to the fire truck was very extensive. It is my understanding that the person hit it has the state minimum, which is, I think, $30,000. Again, I'm not a body person, but I would guess the damage to the fire truck exceeds $100,000. It's a 20-year-old fire truck, 21-year-old fire truck. I don't know if TML will total it or not. Excuse me. It was, looking at it last night, it was either the tank or the pump appeared to be damaged as well, because it was leaking from underneath the vehicle. He tore the truck up. So the answer to your question is we really don't know at this point.
It's a good thing we have some extra funds. Any other questions for Monica? Thank you, ma'am. Okay, let's move on to the, type B. Our CETA. Ashley, please come up and make a presentation.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. It's a pleasure to be here with you this evening. I will start off. Maybe. Okay, perfect. All right, June 12th. So just needless to say, some of y'all have been able to have some one-on-ones and some sit-downs with our new executive director, Jeff Sanford. So thank you for your time in doing so. And if you haven't been one of the lucky yet, don't worry, I'll be calling for his next trip here. I'll kick off, though, with technical difficulties and an apology. So I have discovered that the last 2 group email messages that I've sent out to StephenvilleTexas.gov were not received. So I've emailed June 1st and June 8th, and through getting Stacy and Toad Helcom to come out and tweak and work on my stuff, I think we're back in good shape. So if you've missed an email or 2 or wondered, thanks to Mr. McClinton, he and I actually shared a conversation. He said, I didn't get that. So I checked and got right on it. New leadership for CETA. Jeff Sanford, contract went into effect June 1st of 2018. We talk every single day at 9 a.m. He was in last week and then did fly back to North Carolina. His daughter graduated on Saturday and will be returning this next week. So with a couple of his visits here, we've managed to clock about 35 different visits for him, whether that be an introduction or a project meeting update. And so like I said, for those of you who have sat down with him, thank you. Office happenings, what's going on right now as Jeff is taking over his role. We're preparing the budget piece. So the board, along with the new executive director, we are like I told Monica earlier, I said he's crunching numbers and I'm answering as many questions that I can for him to assist in this role. But the budget manual had a June date as the goal. We're working with that. We'll probably come in right behind it, but continually just, talking with Mr. Barnes and Ms. Harris as we go through the process. And we want to have a transparent budget that we can take to our board, and then that comes over to you guys, so that it can be reviewed, questions can be asked, and things can be discussed before we come to you guys for approval. Personnel policy, Jeff has been working on this during the interim, and while before he really kind of jumped on board. His intent is to have a review copy for our CETA board to look at by August, and then again that would follow and come y'all's direction. We are also establishing and setting some policies and procedures for in-house operations. So an example would be like an application process. What we're going to do, and I've talked with Mr. Barnes on this, when a request is made to the CETA office, we will accept that, and then we will deliver that to our board in executive session. And our board will say, yes, we warrant, your staff time to proceed and work on this, or maybe that's not the right fit. At that point, we will then start discussing and negotiating with the said project. We will talk with our attorney at that time. So when our board meets to approve a project or an idea, they're approving an agreement with details, with numbers that will be then put into place, not approving an idea that then we have to get an agreement on and then come back. So I'm hopeful that this will help with clarity, and that this will help push projects down the road in a more timely fashion. So if y'all have any suggestions in doing so or in procedures, feel free to please just email me. Project update, Project Blue. We are set. We are going to file the application on July 20th to the Texas Capital Fund. Project Pine Floor. This is continuing to move forward, and June 19th we'll be able to share more details with you guys at our joint work session. SRS, this is a retail development location, and I followed up with them. They're currently in some land and legal negotiations, but this is a development that's coming to town. Project HT has their next meeting with the city scheduled, and their commercial realtor will be actually in the office tomorrow to make sure that everything is in order, T's crossed and I's dotted. The West Washington Sewer Project has been approved. Our last board meeting, they made a motion that was approved to handle this situation, get it rolling. The agreement has gone back and forth with the lawyer just a bit, and it should be signed by the 14th. So that will be the West Washington Sewer Extension. The Christie Plaza Light, the information that we received from TxDOT regarding that intersection has been relayed to Aldi's site engineer, and at this point we have not heard back with any concerns that they might have. And then our facade grant applications, we've got two. Some of you heard and saw from Singleton's Realty, and then at the last monthly board meeting, Scott Randolph with Skinny's has applied and was approved by the CETA board. So we're working with those two right now. Inquiries and interest, aside from the projects, just the calls and the people showing interest in Stephenville, there's a medical development. Corporate has put a hold on that temporarily. They've got another project in Texas going on, and they've got some problems with that. They're going to work that out and then come back and revisit our area. An agriculture-related development. Right now I'm working on resources that they need to see if this is an equal match. Water management, again, this is Accelerator H2O, and I've shared that with you before, but they have come in pursuit of us now with a One Water project, and it's with West Texas, and I've entertained phone calls, and I'm following up with some information with the CEO, who's Richard Sealine, and I'll keep you posted on that one. And then request for information. There's been, within the last month, probably 6 new calls that I would say would warrant, we get multiple, but we've got 6 new players that have specific interest and are interested in the growth and development in our area. And then I do communicate regularly with 4, Colette, different commercial realtors in town, Carnegie Properties and Keewaydon, who are constantly, they're seeing us as a shop for information, a one-stop shop. So we're still very excited to help in any way that we can. And then just to let you know, from the state, we do receive RFPs continually. Some do come across that we respond to because it's an equal match. And 2, like this, within the last 10 days, 2 have come across and we didn't meet the minimum requirements, but we are receiving them from the state. So I just wanted you to be aware of that. Calendar happenings, so July 13th through 15th, actually in the morning, I leave about 6 a.m. and head to Galveston for the TEDC Mid-Year Conference. And under that, Encore Terrell, the Small Business Development Group with Tarleton, Waco, and Johnson City, those are a few entities that actually have reached out to our office just to see if we were going to be there. And I thought that made a kind of hit home to me, but that just meant, Stephenville's recognition and their expectation of us being present. It's happening. We're growing that. And then the 19th, we will have our joint work session, the council and the CETA Board of Directors. So I will follow with an email on the specific details. The 21st is our next monthly board meeting for CETA. The 27th, we're actually hosting the student body president of Tarleton. They want to get engaged and try to create a sense of community amongst the Tarleton students in Stephenville. And I also think this will be a great avenue for us to have accessibility for potential interns in multiple departments. And then July has a couple of marketing opportunities, and I'll share specific details as we get closer. But with that, I'll entertain any questions you might have.
Thank you. Any questions for Ashley? Thank you, ma'am.
Actually, I had
Okay.
one request. Could you email me the copy of this presentation? Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and say it for Alan. The font was so small that he had trouble. Is that right?
I did.
Well, Alan and I both had the same trouble. We're the same age this month. No.
Much older.
2 more months.
Yeah.
2 more months. That's right. Okay. All right, move on to the consent agenda. Alan Barnes has asked to pull item 4 to discuss with us here in a moment.
You ready to discuss it?
Well, let's just go ahead and see if there's anything else off the consent agenda. Okay, do I hear a motion then?
Mayor, I move we approve the consent agenda except for item 4.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda except for item 4. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Same sign opposed. Okay. Item 4, Alan.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, as you're aware, Jeremy and I both have recently attended the Balanced Scorecard training presented by the Balanced Scorecard Institute. In that training, we realized that the mission and vision statement that we forwarded to council previously needed some tweaking. You see the mission statement is making Stephenville an unusually good place to be. The vision statement ultimately will be what the council sees Stephenville being in 7 to 10 years, and we'll do that at the off-site that we have scheduled for July. The core values are as presented at the meeting, the previous meeting. What we would like is we'd like your approval of the mission statement and the core values. And then, again, we'll deal with the vision statement. Jeremy and I both talked with the facilitator today and told them our plans, and they felt like that was the proper way to proceed.
Any questions? Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the mission and core value statements as they've been presented.
Second.
Mark makes the motion and Sherry seconds it. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Same sign opposed. Okay, thank you. Comments by city administrator.
We have council meetings on Thursday. Excuse me, the committee meetings on Thursday, June 14th at 5:30. We have a joint workshop with CETA on the 19th at 5:30. At 7 p.m. that night, there will be a historical marker dedication at the Mount Olive Cemetery. And I do have one thing that is not listed on the agenda, and that is, recently we have been notified that the Shepard Street, the Brick Street that was done in cooperation with the Tarleton football team and the Tarleton Corps of Cadets, as well as our Public Works Department and our Public Works Director's 6-year-old son, has been selected as the state American Public Works Association Public Works Project of the Year for the state of Texas. It has been we will be presented with the award, I believe it's the 28th in Fort Worth. And the more exciting thing is that it will be forwarded to the APWA for their consideration for possibly being the national Public Works project. And also we have submitted that project to the Texas Municipal League for the Public Works Project Excellence Award this year.
Any questions?
Excellent.
Comments by council members. Mark?
Got a couple. Just kudos to everybody involved, Nick, Gene, y'all's team, the Tarleton students. This was a volunteer-driven effort, and they're helping to make Stephenville an unusually good place to be. A couple of weeks ago, the Professional Firefighters Association held their second Fire Ops 101 exercise. So I want to give a shout out to Captain Cody Wells and his team that included personnel from the Stephenville Fire Department and Erath County Fire Rescue. The amount of man hours, the organizational time spent, the money that the Firefighters Association spends to put that on is just phenomenal. And they pulled it off successfully again. If it were up to me, it would be a mandate that every elected official in the city and the county attend that program, so that the decision makers knew what the first responders go through day in and day out. I can't do that, but I can encourage you. If you receive an invitation to Fire Ops, the day you receive it is the day you mark it on your calendar and make plans to attend it. It is just that good a program. So just big high fives go out to everybody involved with that for pulling that off successfully and safely again this year. And also a couple of weeks ago, the local Walmart had a rededication ceremony to celebrate their store renovation project. And a part of that celebration included money that was awarded by the Walmart Foundation. And the way that program works is that the local store associates, they look around their communities and they identify groups and organizations that add value to the community, and they nominate them. This year, one of the nominations was given to the Stephenville Senior Citizen Center. So I want to thank first the associates at the local Walmart for identifying the value that the Senior Citizen Center activities add to the community. So thank you for the nomination. I want to thank Jen Basham for following up. She's the Director of Community Services. I specifically want to thank Sandy Morgan, who is the director at the Senior Citizens Center. She's the one that puts the activities and events together and makes it all happen. So big thank you to Sandy. And then to the corporate and the Walmart Foundation team, I want to say again, thank you for recognizing what the local associates recognized and your willingness to support those activities monetarily. The Senior Citizen Center received a grant of $2,000 to help support the activities and events that they put on. And it's a blessed thing to live in a community where we've got corporate partners and vendor partners that are willing to put their money where their mouth is to help make Stephenville an unusually good place to be. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Carla?
Well, I too had on my list to thank Gene and Nick for taking the initiative to apply for the award for the street, because that street is an awesome project. So I hope we're successful at the national level too, but thanks to them for taking the initiative to apply for it in the first place, so that was great. We have July 4th coming up. We have the activities at the park and the parade, so I want to encourage everybody to participate in July 4th activities.
Brady?
No comment.
No comment. Brett?
Nothing.
Alan?
A couple of things.
Okay.
One of which, in your absence last week,
I
you
heard.
set the bar pretty high.
Yeah, I heard.
I-
A minute and
you know,
56
I was
seconds.
gonna say 2 minutes per item, and I think you've probably exceeded that, but you did set the bar extremely high, and I wanted to thank you.
Thanks a
for
lot,
that.
Brady.
Very welcome. Very welcome.
We loved it.
But in your absence, we were able to conduct business
There
very
you go.
efficiently and quickly.
Well, Brady's making a good mayor pro tem. Sherry?
I'd like to agree on the Shepherd Street project. That's just extraordinary. Shows what volunteers and the public entity can accomplish when they all work together. It's extraordinary looking, and it's exciting that there's, recognition for that. And I would definitely second Mark on going to Fire Ops if you get the opportunity. I was unable to participate. I attended, but I did not participate in it last year. And it really is an extraordinary experience. And I would encourage any council members who are interested at all to go. It's a lot of information and a lot of work goes into it. And it's one of those things that sometimes you don't think about. You take a lot of things for granted when you dial 911. And to have them just appear there and be as professional as they are is always, we're just very blessed. So, thank you.
Brandon?
And I will third that. I was a participant this year in Fire Ops 101, and it was hot, and it's a hard job. And I just thank you for the opportunity to go through that, and it was very eye-opening, just to see from a physical standpoint and equipment standpoint what you guys go through on a daily basis. And there's no roadblock y'all don't get over, whether it's a traffic accident or a fire, structure fire, or an EMS call that you get called on, and I truly appreciate it very much. And then I was fortunate enough this week, last week, Stacy set up an opportunity for me to kind of travel with several of the directors, and I'm gonna go with Nick this upcoming week, but I just wanted to appreciate Jen for taking me on a tour of all of her facilities and introducing me to a lot of people. Chief Chu, I got to spend some time at the fire station. I appreciate that. Alan, we went and had a nice lunch and talked with Stacy as well, and then Chief King for showing me the kind of the behind the scenes portion where you don't really want to go. But we are extremely blessed, and I knew that, but when you go behind the scenes and you spend time with these people and you see what they're working with, we're blessed to live in a really good community with really good leadership, and I just thank you a lot for that, so thank you.
I just have two items I want to mention. First of all, it talks about the citizens of Stephenville again. Bill Johnson Park was a special project that was headed up by, I'm going to let Mark mention some of the people who participated. If you'll just mention some of the people in there, if you would, for just a second.
Well, the Keep Stephenville Beautiful was the main partner there, so their board organized the volunteers. Couldn't have been done without the Parks Department, Jesus Coronado in particular, and Jen Basham, and so Jen and Jesus and Alan Barnes and Rick from the Parks Department, they were all there every time there was a volunteer effort, and then just tons of kids from Tarleton. So it was a good mix of folks all around. And then some vendors also kicked in some money. I know McCoy's put some money into the project, and probably some others. But
And like was mentioned earlier, people participating in the fire ops, et cetera. Mark took a leadership role in that project here on the council and pushed us all pretty hard. So I appreciate what you did with that. It was a good project. I showed up at the dedication the other day, and it really is beautiful. It's a good job. Second thing is, a few weeks ago, we had our first annual Mayor's Breakfast benefiting the Boy Scouts of our district. And we raised from the citizens, we only gave them about 2 weeks' notice to for people to sign up and come. We had over 100 participants, and we raised, at this point, the dollars are still coming in, but we're at about $14,000 for the local Boy Scouts. This goes to show how much the city of Stephenville cares about the kids and the youth of our community. And I want to say thank you for that. Obviously, I'll be mayor for 2 years, so I know it's going to happen for at least one more year. So then hopefully it'll become an annual thing no matter who sits in this chair. Any other discussion, any comments? Hearing none, I'm going to call us into executive session in compliance with the provision of the Texas Open Meetings Law, Subchapter D, Government Code, Vernon's Texas Codes, annotated in accordance with Section 551.072, deliberating regarding real property.